This episode of The Libby Show is brought to you by Suite 501 and Integrated Production Solutions.
Hey everybody, this is RyanKinder and you're watching The Libby Show.
So
How did she do it? Do it.
Libby. Libby. Libby.
3, 2,
Libby.
1.
It's the Libby Show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of The Libby Show. I've got a very special guest here today. He released his full-length album, Room to Dream, and he just released a new Christmas single, RyanKinder. Welcome to The Libby Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. He just got really mellow and quiet.
There was who was it? Conan O'Brien. He has a podcast, and I just did exactly what he does. Because when he normally talks, it's like super high.
Yeah.
And then you listen to the podcast, it's like, "Hi, I'm Conan O'Brien. Welcome to Conan's Friends." And somebody called him out on it, and now you just called me out on it. So I'm going to start talking like that.
Amazing. Well, very happy to have you on the show to talk about your music, about where you're from. Let's first talk about Christmas, because we're all ready.
Even if
you
this
know?
was like February or March, we could talk about Christmas, because who doesn't love that time of year?
Who doesn't? So this Christmas, we got that cover out, and it's awesome.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And we were talking about like how, people choose different holiday songs and what works for them. Why this one?
Yeah, I've never put out a Christmas song before, just because the cheese factor of some of them just never spoke to what I wanted to do with music. And I love Donny Hathaway so much. So when my manager and I started talking about putting out a Christmas song, I was very hesitant. And then he said, well, find a song you believe in that you think you could do. And it took me like a week or two. I was like, oh, this one, of course. Like, I can put myself into this song and try and make it my own and still feel good about myself in the morning, Christmas morning.
Well, I love it. I love listening to it, and I'm a huge fan of Christmas music anyway. So props to you. Anything about that age of music that time that...
Yeah, I grew up on that stuff. So Donnie was one of the first people my mom introduced me to. So it's that era of music that I kind of grew up on, that along with like the troubadour era of like California rock, like Jackson Browne, Linda Ronstadt, Eagles, James Taylor, all that stuff. So it was soul, and then California soul, I guess.
Yeah.
That I grew up on, like Al Green, like Donnie, Sam Cooke, all that stuff.
All that good stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like your album Room to Dream has a little bit of like Southern rock influence,
Yes.
though. So share that.
That was my
because
dad's side of my musical upbringing.
Yeah.
So he loved all that Southern rock stuff. I mean, you can name any Southern rock band. My dad was a fan of them. Allman Brothers, Marshall Tucker, all that kind of style stuff kind of was my upbringing in Southern rock. And then learning to play guitar, when I did, it was all like Guitar Heroes. So I just wanted to learn all of the rock power licks. And that was just one more foray into Southern rock, just 'cause it leans that way, especially with the Allman Brothers. I tried to learn all that stuff. And although I'm not a great slide player, I did my best. Nobody can beat Dwayne Allman.
Yeah.
Unless you're Derek Trucks.
Yes. I hope he's watching this.
I don't know if he watches podcasts. He doesn't seem the type. He seems the type to sit in his room and play guitar all day.
And think.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you first learn to play the guitar, though? What was your introduction?
14 years old, I think. However old you are in the 8th grade. I was at Bumpus Middle School. And one of my best friends was taking a guitar class, and I was taking some other elective, and I just wanted to hang out with my friend, so I asked my mom if I could switch. And she said, sure, that's an elective. You can do whatever you want. And I got in there and really fell in love with playing. And I asked my mom to buy me a guitar, and she said, you prove to me you can actually play, I'll buy you one. because I kind of had the tendency as a kid, and then sometimes these days to be really hot and cold with stuff. I'll get super excited about something, delve into it, and then I'll be super cold and let it fall to the wayside. And I've learned from just growing up that I'm that way, so take it slow and make sure you're actually into it before you put a lot of time into it. But back then, she thought it was one of those things that I was a couple weeks in, I'd drop out. So she's like, just prove to me that you can play. So I borrowed a friend's guitar, and I learned Blackbird by the Beatles. And brought the guitar home and played that for her. She was like, okay, you actually give a crap. You want to do this. So she bought me a guitar, and I still have that guitar.
You still have it?
Beat to crap. It's broken. Yeah, it wasn't a super expensive one, and I didn't take care of it like I should have. So the bridge had like peeled off. It's in bad shape, but I'm never going to throw it away.
No. You should like hang it up or get someone to like Mod Podge it or something.
I should fix it.
Yeah.
In honor of my mom actually caring enough to buy me a guitar. She's not dead.
What's her name?
Sally.
Sally. Shout out Sally.
Granny Green, as she likes to go by.
You should, well, I'm going to give away this idea. You should just give her that guitar. You should like get
it's
it.
still at their house.
Oh,
and she's
so
asked me to take it a million times. Like, I just don't have enough
so
room.
she wouldn't really appreciate it as much as if you like redid it or like reconstructed it.
I don't know.
No.
That's not her thing.
Yeah. Well, there we go.
I appreciate
now
the
we know.
thought. Maybe my mother does as well, but she's not that kind of person. She's more of the experience, being around family, doing things together,
Yeah.
rather than presents. Although something very nice would make her happy. I don't know if that would mean as much since it's been there for
years. Collecting dust.
It's like this piece of crap still in the closet.
You talked about like switching hobbies, and I totally identified that as a kid. And so what were some other hobbies or activities you were into like in the moment that like that would
Drawing.
be interesting? Okay.
Like I wanted to be an animator when I was
That's kind of cool
8,
though.
9, 10. Like there's still books at home where I drew stuff, and I mean I got okay, but it just fell off. Like I wanted to draw my own cartoons and have a show, and that obviously did not happen.
Be a part of Nickelodeon?
Yeah, like something like that, or like The Simpsons, or my brother loved The Simpsons at the time, so I drew a bunch of Simpsons. I drew a lot of like Dragon Ball Z, random stuff. And I got okay at it. Like,
Yeah.
I look back at it, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty crappy. But at the time, I was like, I'm getting better, Ma. It's a terrible kid voice.
Claim to think.
Better, Ma.
That should be your next thing to pursue is just do like
Kids music?
animation use, like be a vocal, like
I've actually done a bunch of voiceover stuff.
You have?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you followed through on that. Maybe that's how it,
Well, that wasn't a passion until I was living with my godparents, and I would create voices for the dogs, or I would do accents and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, you're pretty good at this." It was more of a parlor trick while we were drinking too much, just to make everybody laugh. But yeah, I started doing some of that. I've done some stuff for Iron Man. I've tried out for a couple shows. I've done some voiceover stuff for commercials. Yeah.
That's cool.
It was fun.
Have you watched the Nickelodeon documentary
No.
It's so good. It's on Hulu. Like they talk about like how they created the Nickelodeon I guess it's a rocket. It's horrible
like
that
a blimp.
It's a blimp.
That's right.
And they were saying like how orange is a color that doesn't go with anything else, and it's kind of by itself, and how it reaches kids. And they talk about the first animators that were like responsible for Rugrats, a couple of other ones. That was like their first animation TV shows that made it. So you should go watch
It's a
it.
big responsibility.
I know.
It's a Rugrats quote.
I'm really sad I didn't recognize that.
It's too many responsibilities.
I love that show. They talk about how like the babies, they intentionally made them like not every baby's cute. So they were like, we're gonna make this baby just look like whatever.
That's a fear of mine whenever Heather and I have kids. My brother just had a kid, and it's a beautiful, like he's actually a good looking dude. And
Yeah.
I'm afraid when that baby comes out and grows up a little bit, and be like, damn, I made an ugly baby. That came from me, not from you, Heather. That's a random
Bless it.
fear.
Bless that child, whatever they're for.
Terrible segue. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how you don't do an interview.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Talk about where you're from, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I've been there one time.
Well, I grew up in Birmingham. I was born in Knoxville,
Okay.
but I went to Tuscaloosa for school.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I lived in Knoxville for 3 years, so I don't really remember growing up there, but most of my family is from there. Parents and brother still live in Birmingham. Went to Tuscaloosa for school. I was gigging the entire time I was there. I would go to school Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, play gigs Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then drive up here on Sundays and write with Keith Stegall, who was the person that brought me up here. And until April 27th, 2011, I did that for 2 to 3 years. And April 27th, the tornado hit Tuscaloosa, and it was like a come to Jesus moment. Almost got killed by the tornado, me and my friends, and it was the realization of life's too short. I'm already up here. My mind's not in school. I don't want to be there anymore. Mm-hmm. So I moved up here, and the day I moved up here was the day of the flood. Like we were talking about earlier. Of
course.
I have great timing.
Takes a storm to bring you here.
I'm a storm chaser.
Please write a song.
I actually have a song called Storm Chaser.
There we go.
It was going to be the title of this album, but it just didn't make it.
What about Room to Dream? What caused you to switch to that title?
It had more of an impact on what I wanted to do, and with the grouping of songs. So Room to Dream was more of an idea of, I didn't have to stick to a singular genre. I grew up on such different genres and styles of music that I wanted to implement those into this album. And titling it Room to Dream kind of gave me the leeway to do that. It was just the ability and the opportunity to do what I love and just to be me. Like I had the room to dream, quite literally.
Were there any songs that didn't make it in the room? I made a pun there on purpose, but
what do you mean now?
any any songs that didn't make room on that album that
tons.
Yeah.
Tons of songs. I mean, there's songs that I absolutely love that I think are fantastic songs. They just didn't fit the mold of what I wanted to do. I mean, me and Luke Sheets produced this with me when we looked at the track listing, and we had 30 or 40 songs, and we started paring them down to what would fit into this idea of having the Room to Dream. And my first full-length record, a lot of them got tossed because they just didn't make sense. Like that would have been too big of a left turn to make it work under these circumstances. Mm-hmm. Even though it's called Room to Dream and the ability to do whatever I want to do, it still needs to have some semblance of self.
Yeah.
And we tried to stick to that theme in a way, a theme with no theme, which didn't make sense at the time, but once we pared it down to what is the album now, it made perfect sense.
So you left
to
space.
Us, at least.
Left space to kind of let songs fall into place where they need to be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then some of those that didn't make it are obviously on the chopping block for the next record. Yeah. Still writing for that, but there's some songs that I wrote 10 years ago that I still love and I think deserve a shot. We'll see what happens.
See what happens. Maybe they'll make it into a Bluebird round, because I saw you play a Bluebird show the other day with Jen Bostic, and we were talking about her a little bit before this interview. So share what it's been like just being able to perform your songs live again and in person and venues, and that venue in particular.
It's relieving to actually play shows again.
Yeah.
It's been so long. We did the Zoom concerts for so long, and it was great that we had the opportunity to play, but playing in your studio or your bedroom just doesn't have the same effect of actually being in front of somebody and getting a genuine reaction. And there's an air about a room when you're playing and you actually get on a song or a moment that everybody can feel. And the banter between people at the Bluebird, that's what it's about. It's about talking about the songs, getting to know the songwriters, and being a part of that community in the moment instead of on a computer or TV screen.
Yeah. Yeah. How have you spent most of your time that's not the right way to say it.
Responsibilities.
I should have honestly come up with a Rugrats way to say that, which I did. Creatively during the past 2 years. Did that affect how much you thought of for this new album?
content-wise, like
Content-wise,
songs?
melody, maybe there was something that you included on the album that you've never done before, but you've had time to kind of...
So the album was done before the pandemic.
Okay. Oh, gotcha.
So it was completely done, and I was about to put it out, and my business manager, I had a lunch with him, and we'd go get margaritas every once in a while, and he said, there's something coming, and it's going to be really bad. Like, we had heard about what's going on overseas. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't know how bad it was going to be, but he somehow knew. He said, it's going to shut down touring. It's going to be rough for a long time. You need to hold on to that album for a little while. So I pulled it down, and we didn't release it. And he was 100% right about everything, which was incredible to me. I mean, he's a brilliant guy. I just didn't expect him to be so on the nose.
Yeah.
Very thankful for people in my life. But during that time, it was hard getting started because we're all used to being in the room with somebody and getting on a vibe, talking about the lyric and kind of figuring it out together. And now we're on a screen, so it's hard to jump on a groove or figure that out. So you'd have to record it and send it to people, and that kind of takes away from in the moment and jumping on it. But all the bad that caused, it was still good because I started writing with people in LA or New York or overseas that I never would have thought to even try to do this before. Oh, now we can write at any time. So there's good and bad.
Yeah. So your song Jane, I love that song so much. Share more about it and who inspired it. Is it a Jane that inspired it?
It wasn't a Jane. It was just the idea of somebody that was unfortunately named Jane. So it was me, Ross Copperman, and Josh Osborne, and brought in the idea of this girl that's so incredible, but her parents decided to name her Jane. So it was a completely fictitious girl, but I kind of forced my view of my wife upon this girl in the song, because if she had been named something that painted her as boring, that would have frustrated me and made me want to write a song about she's not boring at all, she's incredible. So that was kind of
that's so cool,
the birth of that idea.
So besides music, we got to talk about some of your other pastimes. You've been training for an Ironman, or have before, which is amazing.
I'm supposed to have already been in Hawaii for the World Championships, but that got canceled due to COVID for the second time.
What?
So it was supposed to be last year. That obviously got canceled. And this year it got canceled too. But Ironman made the right decision in canceling it because Hawaii is such a small place. They have only so many ICU beds, and there would have been 6,000+ tourists there. And that's just selfish to the people on that island, that they might not be able to recover that massive of a spike. But I started training. I probably started three or 4 years ago. A friend of mine that was in the military passed away, and he did a bike ride called the Tour de Natchez Trace, the 444, and they raised money for cancer research, and he got cancer and had it during one of his rides, didn't know, and finished the ride with like stage 3, stage 4 stomach cancer, which is wild.
That isn't what?
That's a beast. And it got worse, and he wasn't able to do the ride that year. So I said, well, I'll do it for you. He passed away before the ride, and I did that with his wife, Stormy. And on that ride, he had the same roommate every year. So I met his roommate, and he was riding this weird bike. It was a TT, or a time trial bike. I was like, what is that? He told me about Ironman, said that Kyle had been thinking about doing them. So right then I was like, oh, I'm going to try and do as many Ironmans as I can, since my friend was never able to.
Oh, wow.
And it's turned into a psychotic obsession now.
I feel like everyone that takes on, I used to run, and then I got injured and was like, I can't do this anymore. So now I bike. But I feel like everyone that does it, they're super driven about it, and it's hard to kind of just stop. So talk about that and how it's helps you mentally, having something that's not music that you're really passionate about.
It's a fantastic, I equate it to the music business on one hand, and my triathlon training specifically in the other. It's like you can do 100% right in the music business, and there's still so much out of your hands that somebody else has to do. And in triathlon, you do 100% right. You take care of all the things you need to do, like nutrition, training, recovery. You're going to get to the finish line, and hopefully around the time that you wanted to. So like it's all in your hands. So it was nice to have that juxtaposition of having control over something, especially in that time of my life where I felt like I had zero control of what was going on. So I kind of clung to that, and it helped me mentally, just having the ability, the mental fortitude to finish something like that was so taxing on your body and your mind, and being able to curtail that into something to give back, because I mean triathlon's a very selfish sport from the outside, but I was able to team up with Ironman Foundation and my wife and I's, or me and my wife's charity, Kinder's Kids, to try and give back to every community we went and raced in. So we would do this Christmas drive for toys and go and race somewhere that had been affected by a natural disaster, and have like a little Christmas every year.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was a lot of fun.
Are you going to do something like in conjunction with your single this year with that?
For sure. There's a couple places. It was supposed to be in Kona. We were going to do an early Christmas there just because tourism is the main thing there, and all these kids are struggling. We were going to take a bunch of money and fly a bunch of toys out there and have a big toy giveaway, but we weren't able to go. So I'm saving that money for next year when I'm able to go, because it's still going to be tough times for them. But we're definitely going to do a little Christmas thing this year.
What inspired that charity? Was it the tornado in Tuscaloosa? Or
Yeah,
okay,
tornado in Tuscaloosa. I remember running down after the tornado came through, and I saw a family standing on the platform, or the foundation of what used to be their house, and there's this little girl clutching to a teddy bear, and that image stuck with me for forever. And it didn't really hit me until I got up here and I started playing shows, and we would get a rider and they would give us pretty much anything we asked for. I was like, why don't I ask for a toy? Because I remember seeing Jason Mraz's rider one time, and he had a toy on there, and the band would just like play with them. And I was like, well, I can ask for that and gather them throughout the year and give them to somebody at Christmas time that was affected like that kid was in the tornado.
Oh, wow.
So we started doing that, and we've had drives before Christmas and after Christmas to try and gain as many toys and funds as possible, but we've tried to keep it towards around Christmas just because it just felt right.
How can people support, obviously, this?
Kinder'sKidsFoundation.com. There's PayPal. We usually do an Amazon toy drive every year, and all those toys come to our house. It's like one.
So your
one
kids are
room
like,
in
are
our
these
house.
ours, Dad?
We don't
Mom?
have any kids, just a
not yet.
fur baby.
Why do I think you have kids? I feel like
I look like a great dad.
you look like you would have kids already. Well, I've
act like a
literally
dad.
been
Probably
interviewing
'cause-
him the whole time. He's over there like he doesn't have any children.
Because he makes too many dad jokes.
I mean, you know.
So I appreciate that. I'm flattered.
Well, your
that
future
you think
kids.
I would be worthy enough to sire a child.
Well, you have a puppy that you talked about earlier too.
That's our little baby.
Yeah. Love
Misha Barkton.
Is that
After the famed thespian of the late 1990s.
That is true. I forgot about her
I
until
want to
now.
meet her one day and she'd be like, you're kind of backhandedly making fun of me. No, Misha, I love your work. The OC was fantastic.
That
my
is
dog.
so funny. What kind of dog is it?
We think it's like a Lhasa Apso Bichon. We got her from the pound, so we don't know. We rescued her. I ran into a burning building to get her.
It could, I mean, you've been through so many storms. That could probably track.
People are going to believe that. That's just every time I hear, oh, I rescued them.
Please start a charity and call it Kinder's Kennels.
Ooh, oh.
I'm coming up with lots of branding ideas for you and your family.
Fantastic.
So maybe I should take this part out so no one steals. Well, there's not a lot of people with your last name, so they probably wouldn't. But
I've met 3 people in my life that have my last name. That's a random tidbit that has nothing to do with anything.
well, everyone that I've met is just like extended family. Because my last name's Ulrich, which is not really like that.
Yeah, I've met somebody like
no.
Well.
I've like heard like different versions of it because it's German.
Ulrich.
That's how some people try to say. I'm like, you can literally just like
Ulrich.
pronounce it however you want.
You pronounce it like a Southerner.
It's
okay.
like not as complicated. So what else are you excited about at the end of this year? I want to hear like what like your goals are? Like what is like something that you are super hopeful about closing out everything?
Still writing. I think the early next year we're gonna record album 2, and that's pretty much my main focus. I'll start really training hard again next year for Kona, raising money for that Kinder's Kids initiative. But this year, just the Christmas song. Like, I've never done a Christmas song. I'm excited to have it out because I don't know what it's going to do, but I put a lot of work into that composition and recording. I'm excited to see what happens.
Well, it sounds great. You should be proud.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on the show.
Thank
this
you
was
for
super
having
fun.
me.
Follow RyanKinder on Instagram. Are you a TikToker? Is that like
I try,
yeah?
but
It's a whole other world.
Either humor, Call of Duty, dancing, or nudity, and I'm not good at any of those.
You just stick to the gram.
Like,
Stick to
what
music.
else is there to TikTok?
Sometimes I get overwhelmed by the influx of info that I'm like, it's
Yes.
too like. I mean, at the end of August, I took a break. Didn't tell everybody because I feel like everyone's like, I'm taking a break, everybody. I'm leaving the gram. And I just didn't want to do that.
Look at me. I'm taking care of myself.
I just left. Like, I just got off. And my friends were like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm
better now, actually.
I was like, I actually just didn't want to open anything.
Yeah.
And it was just from all of the information happening around the world, and then just seeing what everybody, like, we're not mentally made to take in what everyone is doing in the moment. So, I guess, I mean, I've felt more creative in the past 2 months than I have in a long time.
That's fantastic.
And it's from just
We're on the same page.
like and retweet and comment. Well, go like and retweet his social media.
I'll be there.
So.
I'll respond.
Yeah. RyanKinder, everybody. Check it out this Christmas everywhere you stream music, and see you next time.
Page.
Like and retweet.
It's the Libby Show. The Libby Show. It's the Libby Show. It's the Libby Show.